Hi BookTube friends, and welcome to a corner of my room that you haven't seen in a while. If I sound tired, it is because I am filming this after the first day of school, back with students for the school year, and you truly never realize how tired it's possible for a person to be until after you go back with students after being away for the summer. I took a nap, but it does not feel like enough. So I am excited to share with you today what my TBR for the rest of 2024 is going to be. Florence has shared some of her reading plans for the next couple of months. And I have a bunch of books that I want to read from now until the end of the year. This is, as always, ambitious. This is kind of like my ideal TBR. I am coming out of my reading slump that lasted all of 2023, but there is no way I'm going to be able to read all of these books between now and the end of the year. But they're the things that are my highest priorities, and if I even just read a couple of them, I'll be really happy. We're going to start off this list with the books that I'm currently reading right now, because I am in the middle of a summer reading theme that is definitely going to continue into September. Those of you who've been watching us for a couple years now might remember that 2 years ago, in 2022, I themed my summer reading around F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel The Great Gatsby, and I called it Hot Gatsby Summer. I reread the novel The Great Gatsby, and then I read or reread both a prequel and a sequel novel based on the same story. I decided this summer that my theme was going to be Jane Austen, and at Florence's suggestion, I am calling it Ardent Austen Summer. The ardent comes from, I believe it's Pride and Prejudice, where someone says, "I love you most ardently." So Ardent Austen Summer turned into Ardent Austen August because of how long it took me to read, and now I guess you could say that it's turning a little bit into Ardent Austen Autumn? Anyway, here are my choices for that. I am in the middle of Emma by Jane Austen right now. This is a very good book. I love Jane Austen. I was in our Jane Austen Society in college. I've read a couple of Jane Austen's books. But somehow Emma was not one of the books that I had read. Obviously I know the story really well, but I had never actually read the book, and so I'm working my way through it now. It is just, I was saying this to someone before, it is astounding the logical hurdles that Emma goes through in her mind to justify all the things that she thinks and does. Just everything constantly, she is twisting the entire world around her to try to make it so that she's right. And it creates a lot of comedy, so I'm having a lot of fun with this book. I'm glad that I'm finally reading it. After I finish it, though, I have no place to put any of these books. After I finish it, I do have 2 other books that are based on Jane Austen novels. They are not based on Emma. I decided to just go with a general Austen theme. And I went next with, this is part of where I get the title of this challenge from, Most Ardently, a Pride and Prejudice remix. This is by Gabe Cole-Novoa. And it is a queer Pride and Prejudice remix, a sort of retelling. So it's the same idea as Pride and Prejudice, except you also have the idea of the character of Elizabeth Bennet being someone who is transgender and has the desire to live as the gender that they are, but they're being treated more like Elizabeth. And the romance kind of blossoms from there. This looks really good. I got this at an independent bookstore back in the spring, I believe it was. I pulled it off the shelf and immediately I opened the cover, took one look at it, and knew that I wanted to try this book. After I read that, my final title for Ardent Austen Summer/August slash autumn is going to be Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. I need you guys to get a good look at that cover. This is in the same vein as the people who did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which had a movie version made out of it. I just think Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters is the funniest premise that I can come up with. And it has pictures. Let me see if I can find a picture. Oh, I can find a picture to show you. Got a really cool sea monster there. So this I thought would be a really absurd, silly way to end my summer slash fall time with Jane Austen. I just watched back the footage, and I don't know if you guys can hear it, but all I can hear when I'm listening to this is that my voice is shot because I was talking to students all day. It's okay, we're powering through. We're doing it for the video. The final book that I wanted to read between now and September, and again, it's probably going to take me all of September to read like one or two of those books, but if this was my ideal September and I had made more progress on Ardent Austen Summer, then this would probably be a book that I would have time for. As it is, we'll see. That book is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This is a new book by Casey McQuiston, just published recently. The premise centers around two former lovers who become estranged, and they're apart for a long time. They had a trip booked that they were going to take together, and then they, I believe, from what I've seen of it, they break up on the flight over. Something like that. They break up right before they're about to take this big trip together. And they have a certain amount of time on the trip that they're allowed to continue to take it before they lose out. So they both separately decide that they're going to go on that trip with the tickets that they were going to use together. So obviously then they reunite on the trip. And as you can imagine, sparks fly. I assume they first start to fly in sort of leftover animosity and then grow into kind of a like steamier reconnection. I was going to get this signed at the National Book Festival this year, but was not able to. This video could turn into a whole review of the National Book Festival this year, which was mixed, even though the authors were really great. But in terms of my access to things, I think everybody found they had less access to the things they wanted than in previous years. I would spend 20 minutes talking about this if I started now, so I'm not going to. But even though I was not able to get this book signed, I did get to see a panel with Casey McQuiston, and I'm just happy that I have the book, because I'm really looking forward to reading it. So that would be September, my ideal September / August. If I were a better reader at reading 2 books at one time than I am, then in September and October I would branch off into 2 tracks. And I would read one book that is a reread and another book that's a new read. As it is, we'll see if that happens. But I am going to try again to reread the Raven Cycle series. See if I can get all of these. The Raven Cycle series, which are some of my all-time favorite books, and astute, keen-eyed viewers might remember that I was going to do a reread of these last fall in September and October, where I do The Raven Boys and The Dream Thieves in September, and Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and The Raven King in October. But I was in a huge reading slump in 2023, did not get there, so I'm going to try it again this year, but I already have 4 books that I'm carrying into September, so I would have to be reading 2 books at the same time. Track record on that, not great. We're going to try it. If it doesn't work, I can always just sort of skim through these again and make them sort of not my official reads, but I just think that the Raven cycle, it doesn't matter to me that the holiday around which the inciting incident happens is in the spring, in April. These books are fall vibes. These books are, you're in a small town in the country in central Virginia, and there's ghosts and psychics and sort of mystical folklore. You're chasing after a long lost Welsh king, and it feels like the kind of thing that you would want to read as it's getting cooler in the fall. They're just fall vibes to me. So one of these years, if not last year then this year, if not this year then next year, I'm going to reread these books in the fall. So we'll try for it this year. The rest of the year from November to December is a little less ambitious in the number of books, but that's because the two books that I would, if I had to choose the top of my list for the rest of that year that I would want to read, they're both chunky. So I will show you them. They are probably the two books at the very, very top of my, most want to read right now. The first one is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. I love an Arthurian retelling, which this is, and Lev Grossman is a very talented author. I still haven't read all of The Magicians, which is the trilogy that he's the most famous for. I have seen the whole television series, and I've read most of the first book, but I really like his writing, and the second I heard about him doing an Arthurian retelling, I really wanted to read it. I got this book in Stanton, Virginia, on our yearly family trip, and I was so excited when I saw it in the independent bookstore because I didn't realize that it was out. I had a hard time keeping track of publishing dates, and I thought it wasn't going to be out until September, so I pulled it off the shelf the second I saw it in July at that bookstore. This book is 673 pages, so part of me thinks I could start it right now and it would still take me the rest of the year, but it's one of the ones that I would love to tackle in November if I have time. My other choice for November, if I didn't go for that one, is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Again, this has been on my list for like a year now. And most of you probably know what this one is, but Babel is a story about translation. It's got magic in it. The magic is in the translation, in the way that the words are used. So we have a young boy named Robin Swift who is orphaned and picked up by a man named Professor Lovell, who takes him to Oxford and teaches him translation and the magic that goes along with it, and ultimately that puts him in a position where he's in conflict with some of the things from his past. This is probably, like, as many people have said, going to be a life-changing book for me as it was for them. It is a bit of a more involved read, as anything that is a little bit longer and a little bit more complex would be. This one is shorter than The Bright Sword. It's about 550 pages, but I feel like I can't start it until I know I'm in the right place for it, and who knows if I will be in November. That'll probably take me till the end of the year if I start that one. If I decide that I want some lighter Christmas fare in December, I do have two books that I would be willing to tackle. This one is Christmas by the Book by Anne Marie Ryan, which is about a couple who's trying to save their bookstore. I would also love to read It Happened One Christmas by Chantal Guertin, and this one actually happens over the course of a few days. It is set from December 19th through December 24th, and it has, if you look at the chapters, it has date and time stamps. I would actually love to try to marathon read my way through this, reading the chapters at approximately the timestamps that it says. So I might not read both of these Christmas books, and I might actually be in the middle of another book at Christmas, but I would love to take a break from whatever I'm reading this year and try to just speed run through this in the 4 or 5 days around which the chapters are set. So those are my reading plans for the rest of the year. I don't think anything else is getting added to this list unless it's for work, and I'm just looking down at the stack of books right now. You can't see it, and I'm afraid if I try to move the camera, it'll mess everything up. Stack of books is as tall as my knee, so obviously not going to get to all of it, but this is what we'll be picking from and choosing from as the year goes on. And in Vlogmas this year, perhaps for one of the videos, I will take you through what I actually read and what I thought of the books that I read. I hope you are reading something amazing right now, and I hope that you tell me about it. And I will see you in my next video, which will either be later next week or in October after Florence completes Fallmas. Bye everybody!